You could tell that the metaverse is going to be the lamest platform the internet had ever seen just from looking at it. But things are a whole lot worse than they initially appeared. There's barely any people that actually use the metaverse despite it being the brainchild of Facebook, which was once the most popular social media out there. The most popular part of the metaverse is probably Decentraland, and it only has about 379 daily active users. You could easily see that many people in RuneScape's Grand Exchange on one trade world. And then there's the graphics of the metaverse. We've seen that already. We live in a world where we have ray tracing and photorealistic graphics, and that is a standard in pretty much any AAA title that is being developed by companies like Rockstar or Bethesda. And yet, the metaverse is out here with graphics that are worse than a lot of PS2 games. This is footage from Final Fantasy XII, a game that came out in 2006 for the PS2, and it only had a total budget of $48 million. That's including both the budget to develop it as well as marketing and things like that. Compare this to the $15 billion or so that Meta has spent on their metaverse just in the past year. And speaking of graphics comparisons, a lot of people, myself included, had been comparing metaverse characters and just the way that the metaverse looked to Miiverse characters, because at first glance, you gotta admit, they do look equally crappy. But you know what? I think that this comparison might actually be insulting to the Miiverse, because the Miiverse was launched 10 years ago alongside with the Nintendo Wii U. And Nintendo was working with much simpler technology, right? Technology of 10 years ago, and a lot less money. Plus, Nintendo has never really been known for having cutting-edge graphics. That's not something that they ever really focus on. But despite these disadvantages compared to Meta and Nintendo not even really trying to make the Miiverse look realistic, Nintendo still found the time to give their Miiverse characters legs. That's right. Metaverse characters don't have any legs. They also don't have any feet, so it's not even like they have that kind of creepy but at least familiar Rayman aesthetic with the floating limbs. No, everyone in the Miiverse is just a straight up below the waist amputee being levitated in thin air, likely by the same cruel god that created them. Now, apparently this legless phenomenon in the metaverse is the result of the Oculus headset that you need to use the metaverse not being very good at tracking people's legs. It's got a whole bunch of cameras all around the headset, and it's relatively good at tracking you from the waist up, but below that it just has no clue. But instead of just making some stuff up to fill in that blank, like giving people tentacles or maybe centaur legs, Meta just decided to be lazy and turn people into a floating torso. Now, to Meta's credit, the old Zuck did make an announcement in his true AI form that characters in the metaverse are soon going to have legs. Sure, it might have cost hundreds of millions of extra dollars, and sure, maybe Meta had to lay off a bunch of employees to make it happen, but none of that is important. What matters is your virtual reality avatar can now stand on their own 2 feet. But even in this video that we got, their movement still doesn't look that realistic. It kind of seems like their ankles are a little bit stiff. And of course, their legs don't have shadows, and their bodies also don't have shadows. Nobody in the metaverse has a shadow yet, so I guess that everybody is also a vampire. I'd also like to point out that this Connect keynote that the Zuck did showing off his character's new legs, it isn't actually footage of his character in the metaverse. It's animations that were created from motion capture. These legs aren't even real, man. It's Hollywood trickery. They want you to think that you're gonna have legs soon, but no, you're going to be a sad floating torso in the metaverse for a long time to come. But I can see this Connect keynote for what it really is. It's a cry for help. More specifically, it's a cry for investors. You see, just last year, Meta was trading at about $353 per share, and now that's down to $134 per share at the time of me making this video. Now, a lot of people used to invest in Meta, at least they did back when it was called Facebook. That was literally the F in FANG or FAMANG, which refers to a different arrangement of big tech stocks like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. It used to be that if you invested in these companies, you would see better returns than investing in the S&P 500. And that was true for years. It was also the reason why all of these big tech CEOs, and especially the founders of these big tech companies, are so rich, because most of their net worth is tied up in the company's stock, which is also why Mark Zuckerberg has personally lost about $77 billion, or over half of his net worth, since September of last year. This is also why Facebook is no longer in the Fagman group, because compared to all of those other big tech companies, it is doing very poorly. Now, funnily enough, the first downfall, the first part of Facebook's downfall, came from Apple, another member of the former Fagman group, because they introduced app tracking transparency, which all of a sudden made it really easy for any normie with an iPhone to shut out all of Meta's tracking and advertisements, which was their primary business model. So I can kind of understand the sudden change of business model that Meta's doing, because Apple pretty much shot them in the leg. But now it looks like Meta is shooting themselves in the legs, which I guess explains the floating torsos. Now, Meta knows that they can't just get a bunch of investors with fake CGI legs, so they went ahead and created a real thing, the Meta Quest Pro, which Meta also announced at Connect 2022. Now, the Quest Pro is a little bit different than the Quest 2, because it isn't really marketed for gaming or whatever it is that the 300 or so people in the metaverse are doing. No, the Quest Pro is trying to become the bedrock of this virtual office that the Zuck thinks is going to be the cash cow that's going to put his business back at the top. Now, the Quest Pro retails for $1,500, so it's a pretty big investment. I mean, this is probably going to cost more than a company laptop and a company phone that employees would get combined. Plus, these headsets probably are not going to last as long as those phones and laptops that companies are giving their employees. I really doubt it's going to be as easy to service them either. I mean, I doubt it's going to be as easy to service a Quest headset as a ThinkPad or a Dell Latitude, at least. Plus, it's really hard for me to imagine people that would actually want to use one of these for their jobs. I mean, even the examples that were in the Quest Pro commercial are not very convincing to me. Like, here we see a woman using the Quest Pro to create 4 virtual monitors. But $1,500 is more than enough to buy 4 real monitors and a flexible arm mount for them, which she would have enough room for on her desk if it wasn't cluttered with over a dozen pencils and a phone from the 1930s. Or we've got this guy with the beanie who can use his Quest Pro to make some floaty stuff come out of his skateboard, and then he picks up a Rubik's Cube and nervously fumbles around with it. Like, come on, man. Who is this actually for? Help me understand the job or the trade that is going to be revolutionized by this new tool, by this Quest Pro. Prove to me that this entire virtual Meta office bullshit is not just a long con scheme to get businesses to buy their headsets for their white-collar employees so that they can have over-engineered meetings about things that could have just been explained in a 3-paragraph email. I'm so tired of having meetings that could just be emails. And you know, at this point, I can't even pretend like I understand Meta's business plans anymore. Hell, at this point, I almost think that the Zuck is just trying to distract us from a possible alien invasion. It's only a matter of time until we see a giant spaceship in the sky, like that scene from Independence Day, driven by aliens that all look exactly like Mark Zuckerberg. That seems more likely to me at this point than Meta actually turning a profit. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Do you think the Quest Pro and avatars with legs having virtual meetings and people buying and selling virtual land to each other in Decentraland that's next to Snoop Dogg or Joe Rogan, do you think that all of this is eventually going to turn Facebook a profit? Or are they going to continue to bleed money until the Zuck returns to his home planet? Leave a like on this video and share it to hack the algorithm. Follow me on Odyssey and have a great day.